Next up is our panel focused on energy resilient communities, accelerating infrastructure, focused on Accelerating Resilient Infrastructure Initiative, a nationwide effort which brings together more than 20 partners to rapidly deploy resilient, community-based energy systems across the U.S. Please welcome Michele Hicks, Schneider Electric, Vidhu Shekhar, Microsoft, and Philippe Bouchard, Alphastruxure.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. I don't know how you follow Bill and I. That was absolutely fantastic and motivating. So I'm going to try to keep the energy up, guys, right? So my name is Michele Hicks, and a little bit about Schneider, if you don't know. We're a 200-year-old company, and we're an energy technology company, but we started selling steel to Napoleon for cannons 200 years ago in France. So we've come a long way, baby. I think that progression, getting on the big tech that was at that time electricity, and riding that wave to industrial automation, controls, software, electrification of fleet, microgrids, DERMS, and many other pieces of what Schneider does. And really what we do is work not only with customers, but with everybody in this room to some degree to partner and bring really a better, cleaner future, more digitized, more electric, and more digital. So that's what we're doing at Schneider. A little bit about accelerating resilient infrastructure. Kind of like back in the June timeframe, we were sitting around going, how can we go faster? Particularly around getting those tax credits that are available, the federal tax credits for Cleantech projects. A lot of stuff's going away, we get that, but how can you go get yours to help do some of the funding? And these credits will be going away July 4th, so you have to be substantially ready. The project's got to be underway by July 4th, but the credits are still there for clean projects. So we've been able to get $1.7 billion in credits for our customers. And I told you we're French, we drink our own champagne, so we got $200 million ourselves for our sustainable efforts, but not just to get tax credits. Also, we started going deeper to go, how do we just help people get funding for these projects? Because it seemed to be an issue, bringing together technology, developers, and funding together. So kind of brainstorming coincidentally by Climate Week, we put together this group of participants. It was 20 now, we're up to like 31. Launched it September 18th. We've built a pipeline of about $200 million in projects. We'd like to build those projects here in LA. So we've got the willing ecosystem to lean in and help you. So we're here to say, let's go, kind of like Bill and I said. So that's a little bit about what brought us together. So I'll take it to my new friend. I just met him, but he seems great, Vidhu.
Looks might be deceptive. Good morning, everyone. This is sort of a homecoming for me. I went to school right across the street here at SC. So fight on, folks. Yes. I work for a small tech startup out of Seattle. You guys may have heard that it's been around for about 50 years. And in that 50 years, we've fundamentally seen software and hardware fundamentally change. Oh, wait, this is not a panel about software and hardware, correct?
Please go.
No.
You're on a roll.
But the reality is the fundamental pieces of infrastructure powering any large-scale technology development, whether it be in the software hardware realm, or even if we talk about larger scale technologies like the internet, or in fact, any general purpose technology for that matter, it comes down to one critical factor: energy. And that's really where I think a lot of the conversations that you'll hear today are going to be focused on. How do we create resiliency, not for our needs today, but as we scale forward to 2028, but really how do we scale to the next decade and a couple of decades in the future? Because what we are doing is really building that foundation for energy resiliency. And in fact, it's not even an energy conversation anymore. Some of the most interesting projects that I've had the privilege of working on over the past 5-6 years are actually public safety projects. And you're going to ask me, what's the connection there? If you guys have lived in California for more than one summer, you might have heard about this phenomenon called wildfires, right? And I think there's a big connection between how we think about potentially different aspects of life in society, but all coming together when we run into issues like wildfire. And I think that's where I think, from our different lenses, as we think about an event that can bring all of us together to take action and take action really fast, and that's LA28 in my mind. I'm not a technologist, popular to contrary belief, right? Like I was saying, public policy nerd, but one of my first professional experiences was here in LA in public transit. A small entity called Foothill Transit. How many people familiar with Foothill Transit? Oh, wow, okay. This side of the room. This side must be like South Bay. And one of my first projects there was getting the nation's first electric bus into service. I think we've come a long way from that. And I'm hopeful that as we kind of have more discussions on this panel today, we'll talk about how not just battery electric, but maybe even fuel cell and other technologies can contribute to what the vision for mobility is, not just with LA28, but long term. I do see a lot of autonomous vehicle providers amongst the list of sponsors. And I think that'll be another area for us to talk about is how can technology and how can data and AI form sort of that layer of interoperability that helps us meet this vision. I think that's really it for the starting.
Wow.
I hope I've given Philippe some things to kind of go off of.
A plus, Vidhu. Thank you.
And I would say, make it clear that Microsoft is part of Accelerating Resilient Infrastructure, one of our partners, as is Alphastruxure, which is why you find us here today.
Absolutely. Well, my name's Philippe Bouchard, and before talking about myself and Alphastruxure, I just wanted to give a quick shout out to Lacey, the LA Cleantech Incubator, and please join me in a round of applause. They are putting on an outstanding conference. I don't know about you guys, Ed Norton, Brian Cox, Bill Nye. I'm feeling the star power, and I am getting inspired about LA28. So a little bit about Alphastruxure. We're a company, a joint venture between Schneider Electric and Carlyle, created to develop, finance, own, and operate on-site energy infrastructure for energy-intensive customers. What do we do? Essentially, we electrify and decarbonize at speed and scale. And we do that using innovative technologies, by using streamlined project delivery methods, and most importantly, we work very closely with our partners. And one of the comments that Matt Peterson made yesterday, as we kind of just launch right into the issues and what we're doing about it, he mentioned the outstanding progress that's been made, bringing $500 million into preparations for infrastructure to support LA28, and the goal of bringing in $500 million more to achieve $1 billion invested in the games. And I'm looking at this consortium here, which we've got 3 representatives. We have 30 plus companies participating, capital providers, project developers, and technology companies. And altogether, we have access to $7.5 billion of funding that is looking for a home in high quality projects. So my opening statement or position is that this is not a money problem. The real challenge or issue is engaging with the end users, the entities or off-takers that own kind of the operational and logistical challenges of getting people to and from the events sustainably, and putting in place an action plan, because in my opinion, look, the planning has been amazing. The roadmaps, if you've not read them, there are 3, and I highly encourage you to. They are information dense. They are packed with valuable information. They've been published. The goals are public, but the planning phase is over. And we are now officially in the execution and implementation phase of how do we get stuff done in preparation for the games. And let me be the first to say, as a project and infrastructure developer, 2.5 years, it may sound like a lot of time, but It's not. It's literally tomorrow. So one of my call to actions today is going to be, how do we work more directly with the agencies, the venues, the ecosystem that's represented here to get more steel in the ground, more projects done, hardware deployed, so that we can plant our flag of victory and claim this game's a success.
Yeah, absolutely. We have 954 days, if we haven't said it. I mean, we should be feeling that sense of urgency. I don't know why it always takes all of us. Is it just human nature that we need to have this looming deadline to kind of get us moving? But it's time to move, and I think that's what, if nothing else today, we should be leaving with a call to action. So speaking of a call to action, what have you seen as like common barriers to get some of these projects moving?
Well, I think the number one issue, which I think Philippe also addressed, is money and funding, right? People spend so much.
Can't help you, apparently.
Yeah. No, and I think sort of, across the board, so much of the focus goes into how do we get the right set of partners on the table to get the money, that I think people start forgetting that the timeline is a little bit rigid in this case, right? Given the way things are moving, I don't think we can push the timeline, right? In many other scenarios, and you'll see this happen. I mean, Expo Line's a perfect example, or the Crenshaw Line, right? Big infrastructure projects have a tendency to slip, right? And I think that's going to be the challenge: is how do we now, in the 900 and how many days?
954, I believe it is today.
Yes. In the 954 days, how do we go from ideation to execution, right? And if we're starting with something today, it's already too late. What I see, especially, I do have a colored lens from technology perspective, right? We are starting to see rapid scale execution happening in the technology world. I mean, if you think about, and I know, we don't like Washington policymakers as much in this room, but if you think about Project Stargate, I mean, they've already gone live with multiple data centers since announcing it in January. That is by far a record. And yes, there are concerns that we'll have to wait and watch in terms of long-term longevity of those data centers. But the notion around how do we build modular, pre-approved infrastructure projects that can go through seamless permitting in short periods of time and get up and running. And it does not stop there. Get up and running and have digital twins for virtual inspections and maintenance, so that that infrastructure lives through decades to come, right? We usually think about a lifetime use of infrastructure, about 75, 80 years. That is too short, right? Because as we kind of see, yes, technology is changing, a lot of things are changing. We need to build infrastructure that's more resilient than just a few decades.
I totally agree. I think there's been too much, I guess, in my construction past is, startup commission, see in 30 years when we decommission, perhaps a taillight warranty from some of our partners, and just a very disparate group of solutions, right? That doesn't leave a good experience for the user or for the people who have to have their experience in that built space.
I mean, there's a reason nationally our infrastructure grade is nothing to boast about.
Yeah, so future ready to scale. Philippe?
I just wanted to double click on some of Vidhu's comments and also highlight a project that we're very proud of. That's the Brookville Smart Energy Bus Depot. It's 3 megawatts of solar canopy, renewable natural gas-fired engines, battery energy storage, all integrated with a master control system that is delivering sustainability and resilience to an electrified bus depot. Mm-hmm. In my mind, this is literally the perfect prototype for projects that we need here in LA, right? The only challenge is that it's in Maryland. So, again, my comments go back to, this is not about the money. We have the investors ready and waiting to put capital into these projects. We sign long-term agreements. We own and operate that infrastructure on their behalf, and we deliver guaranteed outcomes. What we need are those procurement and contracting vehicles and the tight collaboration with the end users, with the off-takers, be it transit authorities, event stadiums, or otherwise. And we need to make sure that we are investing in infrastructure that provides lasting value to the communities of Los Angeles and their surrounding areas. If we're just rolling out a bunch of temporary EV charging, temporary power generation, and then vamoosh, all of that vanishes once the game goes on, then in my mind, we have missed a very real opportunity to, like you said, use the games as that catalyst to achieve the overarching sustainability goals that the state of California has already agreed this is the path. We want to go to zero carbon energy, and again, we have the ability to make that happen.
Are you adding on? I thought you looked like you had a thought.
It brought me
I'm
to
just
start
getting to know
thinking
you.
about one of my academic projects had me fly down to Rio de Janeiro in preparation for the 2016 Olympics. And and we see the Olympics as sort of an economic development catalyst every single time. Very few host cities are able to sustain the long-term success. And in fact, I think LA has a good history of being able to use the Olympics as a catalyst, right? And so I think being able to kind of flip the script of just physical infrastructure, but to actually energy resilient infrastructure, I think is going to be the key for us to have this sustainable success.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think many of us have been to cities that have hosted the Olympics in the past, and there's sort of a Olympic graveyard, if you will, of leftover monuments to that. I love that we can deploy here and deploy quickly. I think one thing we should be thinking about too is retrofitting the built space. I mean, it's not as glamorous, it's not as exciting, but energy efficiency goes way back, right? Our roots in conservationist, environmentalist, whatever you want to call it, close the lights or shut the door, you're letting the air out. All of that philosophy can be deployed to the built space with technologies that are ready today, if we can get together and really come together in alignment. And we've been juggling around some ideas we're going to pitch later to LA28, but just coming together and being in person like this has spurred a lot of creativity, I feel like, in the room, and a lot of thoughts that we can go after.
That's the whole theme. Performance through preparation and partnership. If you're an Olympian and you're competing in the Olympics, your outcome is likely decided before you step out onto the ring or the racetrack. It's the training and preparation that you put into it. So I completely agree, Michele. Let's not get, we all get excited about sexy microgrids and, interesting projects, but energy efficiency, changing out variable speed drives, putting in energy efficient light bulbs, there's a whole category of work that we can do as an industry and ecosystem that actually exists totally independent of the operations of the Olympic Games.
Right, parallel paths, right? Because I see a lot of people saying, oh, well, there's no CapEx build, so it's not that exciting for me. But we have got to keep challenging that.
Yeah.
And as 3 Californians on this panel, I know you live in Sacramento. You're nearby in Mar Vista.
You make it sound like a bad thing.
It's great. Sacramento's wonderful. But we're thinking this whole LA specific, and I live in Long Beach, and we have a lot of events in Long Beach, and thinking of it from the lens of a resident, like what's in it for me, right? What's in it for our families? What's in it after it's done? Is it going to be just a colossal pain for us to just go, the grocery store, or is it going to be an opportunity to Airbnb our place out? I don't know. I'm not sure about that. But and what's left over? Yeah. Which is real, and people are asking these questions now all over LA.
Now, Michele, I feel like if we're talking about getting projects done, hitting these very ambitious EV charging goals, I think it's like 130,000 light-duty public charging infrastructure, 95,000 goods movement charging infrastructure, 1,300 megawatts of solar battery-enabled peak demand reduction. I mean, these are big tasks, and we would be remiss not to talk about permitting, interconnection. I mean, there are the practical realities of executing these projects. These are friction points in every development cycle. And so it's easy for us to get up here on a stand and say, hey, streamlined permitting. But what does that look like? What does that mean? In my mind, we need to be working with local agencies, the authorities having jurisdiction. We need to be staffing up, allocating dedicated resources, and literally creating a fast lane for anything that is related to the Olympics. It goes through a different process. It is reviewed, and you get feedback within 30 to 60 days, and you keep the machine going. And so that's something that I encourage us all to think about. That's not in our control, but that's something that together we can really improve that process.
Yeah.
Good job, Philippe.
Thank you.
So I would throw at you, Vidhu, what is your call to action today, or what would you ask people to go away and do, and what do you commit to doing? We have a few minutes left, and I'll ask Philippe, and I'll wrap it too.
You know, one of the number one issues is we start looking at things as individual separate problems, right? Typically, you know, early in my own career, I looked at things from a three-dimensional lens, if there was a problem. It was a people, process, and technology problem, right? I don't think it's a three-dimensional problem anymore. I think it's grown to become a five-dimensional problem. And it's a people, process, technology, data, and policy problem, right? And this is what you mentioned. Policies around permitting, for example, policies around project intake. But to make good policies, you need a strong data-driven and data-filled, insight-filled ability, right? And for me, the call to action is going to be each one of you, through your own individual roles and agencies, probably has a lot of data. But if you just take data and put it together, it's essentially the classic computer science theory of garbage in, garbage out. Thank you. Yes. And so the ability for technology, in particular, and this is where I'll sort of talk about AI a little bit, is we now have technologies that can help with this. Solving the grid issue goes beyond just one entity. Solving the transportation issue also goes beyond one agency, right? And this is where I think we need to look at the collective and bringing all of that insight together and then be able to surface it in a way that is comprehended by the common man, right? And the common person. And I think that's the key piece that I would say is the call to action. The second, and from a commitment standpoint, I think Microsoft's made some very public commitments around three big things. Going carbon negative, going to water positive, and going to waste negative, right? And despite the way AI has affected energy consumption, we are still very committed to moving towards those three goals within first the 2030 timeframe, which was actually established a decade before that timeline. And then by the time we get to 2050, look at removing historical traces and going carbon neutral from all historic points of view. That is extremely ambitious, and yes, I can feel a lot of skepticism in the room, but that's where I think our goal is. And we are hopeful, in particular with technologies like fusion systems coming online, carbon sequestration, we are able to meet those goals.
Very good. Philippe?
Well, I'd like to bring it home just by saying whenever you are tackling a really big, complex problem, you usually want to start with the outcome that you're trying to achieve and reverse engineer and work backwards. So in that context, I wrote 2 press releases. In fact, I lie. I had ChatGPT write 2 press releases. And no, these are both fictional and not approved by my PR department. But one is the downside. And I think it's important that we acknowledge this. From green dreams to diesel nightmares, how LA28 sustainability goals went up in smoke. Stories ring about dedicated fans found themselves choking on the acrid fumes of diesel buses as electric shuttles sat idle, sidelined by the lack of sufficient charging infrastructure. Organizers scrambled to deploy massive fleets of diesel generators to combat widespread power outages during a record-breaking heat wave, undermining the very carbon negative pledge that defined LA28's visions. This is my Olympian athlete says, "We train for gold, not survival."
Oh dear.
So look,
Back yesterday.
I think we all know what we can do with that press release, right? Now, let's focus on the outcome.
That's what makes neutral.
Yeah. Let's focus on the outcome that we want. LA 28 sets the gold standard for sustainability, how the greenest Olympics ever transformed Los Angeles. What began as an ambitious vision has become a historic triumph. LA 28 didn't just meet its energy and sustainability goals, it shattered expectations, delivering the most sustainable Olympic Games in history and leaving a legacy that will benefit Angelenos for decades. Thousands of zero-emission electric shuttles moved fans seamlessly between venues, powered by a robust charging network. When record-high temperatures tested the grid, advanced microgrids and renewable energy systems kept venues cool and powered without a single diesel generator in sight. Jordan Smith, an Olympian, says, competing in an environment free from pollution and powered by sustainable energy gave us the edge that Team USA needed to clinch victory.
Beautiful.
So let's all work. That is my commitment, and everyone in this room is to work, to collaborate, to make this the outcome, the vision that becomes reality.
That is, I think that is a mic drop, and I know we're running over, but I would also like all of you to challenge yourselves to what you can go do today, not tomorrow when we leave here. We often say think big, start small, but scale fast. So where can we do these things together? And I think another call out for what we can do here is you showed up. That's the first thing. You showed up, you spent all day yesterday, perhaps, and today. Make some meaningful new contacts and do something with them, right? I've met some great people and I plan on keeping those contacts alive. And I really believe in this power of people. And in my construction background, we used to say scheduling, right? Cost and quality. And I think that some of those old adages are gonna have to go out the window. I'm not saying we don't care about those things, but it's not yesterday that we're building the future. So I challenge us to link arms and do this together. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Michele.
Thank you, Michele.